The squeal of oversized tires cut through the cold night just a split second before the thud. "Rusty!" the trucker shouted, his voice cracking as the brown mutt's body rolled under the chrome bumper of the lifted truck. The parking lot of the I-40 truck stop fell silent for a heartbeat. Diesel engines idled in the distance, neon from the diner sign flickered on cracked asphalt, and under the harsh floodlights, the little brown dog lay whimpering, one paw twisted at an angle it should never bend. Ethan Cole was moving before he even knew it. One second he was climbing down from his semi, coffee in hand, the next he was sprinting, cup flying, heart pounding in his ears. Rusty tried to lift his head, eyes wide and confused, tail giving one tiny hopeful wag when he saw his human. The lifted truck's driver just laughed. "Dude, did you see that?" came a cocky voice from inside the cab. A tall kid in a varsity jacket leaned out the window, his friends crowded behind him, phones already out. The truck itself looked like it had never seen a dirt road, spotless paint, LED light bar, suspension jacked up for no reason except attention. Ethan dropped to his knees beside Rusty. "Easy, buddy. Easy," he whispered, one hand on the dog's trembling chest, the other feeling for broken ribs. Rusty whined, licking Ethan's wrist, trying to crawl closer despite the pain. "You just ran over my dog," Ethan said, voice low and dangerous. The kid shrugged. "Should have kept him on a leash, old man. Not my fault some stray jumps in front of my truck." "He's not a stray," Ethan shot back. "He's my dog. You were speeding through a parking lot." Behind his controlled tone, something dark simmered. Years of SWAT training pressed on his shoulders like an invisible hand, reminding him to breathe, to assess, to not let anger pull the trigger, literally or otherwise. But the sight of Rusty struggling to breathe dragged him someplace else. Back to a hallway in a rundown apartment, a 10-year-old boy bleeding out while Ethan screamed into his radio for medics that came too late. "Not again. Not on my watch." "Somebody call a vet," shouted a waitress from the diner, apron still on, phone already in her hand. A few truckers stepped closer, forming a loose circle. One of them, gray-beard and baseball cap, shook his head. "Kids like that think the road belongs to them," he muttered. The kid in the lifted truck smirked down at Ethan. "Relax. It's just a dog. I'll have Daddy send you a check or something." Ethan slowly stood up, towering beside the front tire. Up close, the kid smelled like overpriced cologne and entitlement. "Turn off the engine," Ethan said quietly. "Get out of the truck." The kid scoffed. "Who do you think you're talking to?" Ethan's hand twitched toward his hip on instinct, seeking a holster that wasn't there. Off duty. No sidearm. His badge was in his wallet, tucked into his flannel shirt pocket beneath his jacket. He forced his hands open, fingers splayed. "Come. Control." "I'm the guy whose dog you just hit," Ethan replied, eyes never leaving the kid's. "You're not going anywhere until we get officers out here and Rusty to a vet." The kid's eyes flicked to the small crowd, then back to Ethan. Defiance hardened his jaw. "My dad owns half this town," he said, putting the truck in gear. "You really want to make this a problem?" The reverse lights of the lifted truck flicked on, aimed straight at Rusty's broken body. Ethan moved without thinking. He slammed his palm against the truck's tailgate and drove his shoulder into the metal, shoving with all his weight. The truck jolted, tires spinning uselessly as the kid hit the gas. "Hey!" the kid shouted. "What the?" "Cut the engine." Ethan barked, voice echoing across the lot with the sharp authority of someone used to being obeyed. The kid hesitated, the sound of revving fading as he finally killed the ignition. His friends in the back seat stopped laughing. One of them, still recording, lowered his phone a little. The gray-bearded trucker rushed in, scooping Rusty up in his arms as gently as his rough hands allowed. "Got him. There's an all-night vet 3 miles down," he said. "I'll drive." Ethan nodded, eyes still locked on the kid. "Go. Tell them I'm coming. Name's Ethan Cole." As the old trucker hurried off with Rusty, Ethan stepped closer to the driver's door. The kid pushed it open like he was stepping into a nightclub, not a crash scene. "You just assaulted my vehicle," the kid snapped. "You dented my tailgate. You almost backed over my dog a second time," Ethan replied. "You're lucky all I hit was your tailgate." Neon light carved sharp shadows across Ethan's face. The years working SWAT in the city had etched permanent lines into his brow. Sleepless nights. Screams he couldn't forget. On his days off, the road and Rusty were his therapy, the only things that quieted the noise in his head. And this kid had nearly taken that away because he wanted to show off. The kid thrust his chin forward. "Name's Colton Hayes. My dad's Mark Hayes. You know Hayes Development? Guess who funds half the sheriff's re-election campaigns around here?" Ethan felt his jaw clench. He reached into his pocket slowly, deliberately. A few of the onlookers tensed, thinking the same thing the kid did. "Whoa, what are you doing?" Colton flinched. Ethan pulled out his worn leather wallet and flipped it open. The gold shield badge of a city SWAT officer glinted under the parking lot lights. "I'm Officer Ethan Cole, SWAT out of the city," he said calmly. "Off duty or not, I just witnessed reckless driving and a hit-and-run attempt. You're staying until local law enforcement gets here." Colton's friends exchanged nervous looks. The one with the phone swallowed hard. "Delete that video," Ethan added, nodding toward the phone. The kid with the phone hesitated. Colton sneered. "Don't you dare. He can't tell you what to do. You're out of your jurisdiction, cop. And once my dad hears you put your hands on my truck." Blue and red lights suddenly washed over the lot as a county cruiser pulled in, gravel crunching under its tires. A young deputy stepped out, hand resting on his holster, eyes darting between Ethan, the lifted truck, and the small crowd. "Evening," the deputy said, trying to sound in control. "We got a call about an accident with an animal?" Ethan took a breath. This was the moment that decided everything, for Rusty, for his career, for whether injustice won again tonight. Colton stepped forward, pointing at Ethan. "Yeah, deputy. This guy went crazy. He attacked my truck, tried to rip me out of it. I was just driving through when some stray ran right under my tires." The deputy's gaze flicked to Ethan's badge, then back to Colton, then to the expensive truck and its gleaming rims. A tiny hesitation, just long enough for Ethan to see fear of politics creep into the young man's eyes. "Sir," the deputy said to Ethan, voice tightening, "I'm going to need you to step over here and keep your hands where I can see them. If you want to know how this story ends, follow the next chapters like you're watching a series. Don't miss what happens when justice pushes back." The deputy's hand tightened on his holster as he added, "Because right now, I'm being told you're the one facing assault charges." For the second time that night, Ethan felt the ground tilt beneath him. "Assault charges?" he repeated, incredulous. Colton folded his arms, a smug smile spreading across his face. "Told you, officer. You messed with the wrong truck." The deputy shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I need to separate everyone while we sort this out. Please turn around and—" "You're cuffing him?" The gray-bearded trucker's voice cut in as he hurried back from his pickup. "Rusty gone? Presumably already on the way to the vet with someone else driving." "You got it backwards, son. That kid came in here like it was a racetrack." Murmurs rippled through the watching truckers and diner patrons. A couple of them stepped forward. The waitress wiped nervous hands on her apron. "I saw it," she said. "He was flying through here. That dog was just crossing like he always does, sticking close to his guy." Colton rolled his eyes. Of course the truck stop people are going to take his side. They probably hate nice trucks on principle. Ethan forced himself to inhale slowly. 1, 2, 3. "Deputy," he said quietly, "there should be cameras on the lot. Front of the diner. Maybe by the fuel pumps. That'll show you exactly what happened." The deputy nodded, looking like he desperately wanted something impartial to cling to. Yeah, we can check those." Colton scoffed. "You can also call my dad. He'll explain how big a mistake this guy's making. Numbers in your system, I promise." The deputy winced like he already knew that was true. Ethan's mind kept drifting back to Rusty. The feel of his ribs, the way his paw dangled. He remembered the first time he saw the dog at the shelter. Just another brown mutt that no one looked at twice. Rusty had been curled up in the back of the kennel, too quiet, too used to being ignored. When Ethan crouched down, the dog had lifted his head, eyes tired but hopeful. That look had hooked straight into the ache in Ethan's chest. "I couldn't save that kid," he'd thought. "Maybe I can save this dog." Tonight, losing Rusty felt like failing all over again. "Deputy," Ethan said, his voice rough, "my dog is at the emergency vet right now and I need to get there. I'm not running. You have my name, my badge number, my department. But if he doesn't make it because I was standing here arguing with a spoiled kid—" Colton cut in sharply. "Spoiled? You hear that? That's harassment. I want that noted." The deputy looked trapped. "Okay, everyone stop talking for a second," he snapped, louder than he probably meant to. He rubbed his temple. "Mr. Hayes, Officer Cole, we're going to secure the scene, get statements and review the footage. No one is under arrest yet. But no one leaves until I say so, understood?" Ethan clenched his jaw but nodded. He'd been on the other side of this conversation 100 times. The deputy was young, caught between truth and power. "What about my dog?" Ethan asked. Before the deputy could answer, his radio crackled. "Unit 23, this is dispatch. Be advised, We have a call from Mark Hayes requesting supervisor at your location. He's en route. Colton's smile widened. Told you. Dad doesn't like when people mess with his family. The deputy swallowed. Copy, he said into the radio, voice suddenly brittle. He glanced at Ethan. For a split second, guilt flashed in his eyes. The waitress leaned closer to Ethan, whispering, We do have cameras. But the manager, he's scared of the Hayes family. If they lean on him, he might lose the footage. Ethan stared toward the convenience store where the manager's office light glowed behind blinds. He'd seen this game before. Money. Influence. Pressure behind closed doors. Only this time, it wasn't some anonymous victim he was trying to protect. It was Rusty. A pair of headlights turned into the lot, sweeping across the mall. A black SUV, tinted windows, polished grille, a vehicle that didn't belong among the battered semis and dusty pickups. The deputy straightened his uniform nervously. Colton's smile turned predatory. Showtime, he murmured. The SUV pulled up, engine humming. The back door opened, and a man stepped out in an expensive coat, flanked by another man carrying a thin briefcase. Officer Cole, the older man called, his voice smooth as glass. I'm Mark Hayes. I think you and I need to have a little conversation. Mark Hayes walked like someone who had never once been told no, and believed it. He crossed the asphalt without looking at the potholes, the diesel puddles, or the people who stepped back to make room for him. The deputy gave a stiff nod, shoulders tensing. Mr. Hayes, he said. Sir, we're still investigating. I'm sure you are, Mark replied, barely glancing at him. His focus was on Ethan, eyes sharp behind expensive glasses. Officer Cole, is it? City SWAT off-duty out here playing trucker? The word trucker came out like janitor, something to be endured, not respected. Ethan kept his stance relaxed. Just visiting a friend's route, he said. And watching my dog get run over by your son's truck. Mark's smile tightened at the edges. My son tells me a stray darted out in front of him and you lost your temper. Slammed into his vehicle. Tried to yank him out. That true? Your son was speeding through a crowded lot and tried to back over my dog a second time, Ethan answered. There are witnesses. And there will be statements, the deputy added weakly. We'll get everything on record. Mark finally looked at him. Deputy? Parker, is it? Call your supervisor. Let him know I'm here. I'd hate for some misunderstanding tonight to end up costing your department a lot of money. He gave a polite, chilly smile that didn't reach his eyes. Parker swallowed. Already on it, sir. The man with the briefcase cleared his throat. Mr. Hayes, perhaps we should step aside and... No, Mark said. Nothing to hide. He turned back to Ethan. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to calm down, officer. You're going to admit you overreacted, apologize to my son for putting your hands on his vehicle, and we're all going to move on. I'm sure your department doesn't want their SWAT officers making a scene in my county. And my dog? Ethan asked. Mark's expression flickered just for a heartbeat. We'll cover your vet bill within reason. As a gesture of goodwill. Ethan studied him. The offer was bait. Strings tangled behind every word. Within reason, he echoed. What if he needs surgery? Long-term care. Then perhaps, Mark said carefully, you'll need to decide how much a mutt is really worth, officer. Rusty's face flooded Ethan's mind, muddy paws on his couch, the way he'd press his head into Ethan's chest on nights when the nightmares wouldn't let go. The dog didn't know about politics or money, or whose name was on a highway billboard. He just knew who had reached into that cold kennel and said, Come on, buddy. You're going home. Ethan's voice came out low and steady. He's worth more than a spoiled kid's ego. Colton bristled. You can't talk to me like that. Colton, Mark snapped. The kid went silent, but his eyes burned. Mark clasped his hands like he was closing a business deal. Officer Cole, I sit on the police foundation board. I know you're chief. I know you're SWAT commander. I know how fragile a career can be when the wrong headline hits the wrong paper. Off-duty cop attacks local businessman's son isn't exactly great optics. Behind him, the truck stop manager appeared in the convenience store doorway, wringing his hands. The deputy glanced at him, then quickly away. You pressured the manager already? Ethan asked. Mark's smile returned. I asked him if his cameras even work. Old place like this, things break, files get corrupted. Tragic, really. The waitress standing near the door sucked in a breath. Ethan saw it in her eyes. Fear, frustration, the experience of someone who had watched people like Mark Hayes win over and over. Mark stepped closer. I'm offering you an exit ramp. Take responsibility, we smooth it over. Your dog's bill's covered, your badge intact. Or, we let this play out. My lawyers versus your department. Your dog's fate versus public opinion. Your call, officer. Ethan felt the trap closing, every angle lined with cruelty disguised as civility. In his chest, the old guilt pressed harder. Another life on the line because of a system that protected the powerful. He thought of Rusty on that vet table, scared and alone. He thought of all the people who never had a badge to flash when someone rich decided they were disposable. Slowly, Ethan shook his head. I'm not signing away the truth for your convenience. Mark's eyes went cold. Then you've made your choice. At that moment, a notification chime echoed from several phones at once. The waitress pulled her phone from her apron, eyes widening. One of the truckers cursed under his breath. Colton's friend, the one who'd been filming, went pale. On the waitress's screen, a video autoplayed. Rusty crossing the lot on a loose leash, Ethan a few steps behind, and the lifted truck barreling in, engine roaring, phone clearly visible in Colton's hand as he laughed and looked away from the windshield. At the bottom, rich kid nearly backs over dog twice at truck stop, police car light, #Hayes Air. The view count was already climbing fast. The waitress looked up, eyes shining with something new. Mr. Hayes, she said quietly, I think the whole internet just saw what your son did. For a moment no one spoke. The only sounds were the humming neon, the distant rumble of highway traffic, and the muffled audio of the video on several phones at once. Colton's laughter, the engine revving, the sickening thud when Rusty was hit. Colton lunged toward his friend. You posted that? Are you insane? I didn't, the kid stammered. I swear I just sent it to my group chat. Someone else must have. Doesn't matter, murmured one of the truckers. It's out there now. The deputy watched the video on his own phone, color draining from his face. That's reckless driving at minimum, he muttered. His gaze snapped to Colton. And you tried to back up over the dog after the impact. Mark's jaw tightened. Turn that off, he ordered. All of you. Anyone who reposts that is getting sued for defamation. The gray-bearded trucker snorted. Doesn't look like defamation to me. Looks like the truth. Ethan didn't bother to pull out his own phone. He didn't need to see it. He'd lived it. Right now, all he cared about was whether Rusty was still breathing. Deputy Parker, he said, you've got probable cause now. You should be talking about charges for Colton, not me. Parker looked torn, but the video had put steel in his spine. Mr. Hayes, he said carefully, we'll still need formal statements, but based on this footage, your son was driving too fast for conditions and... We're leaving, Mark cut in. My attorney will contact your sheriff in the morning. Colton, get in the car. Colton obeyed, but not before shooting Ethan a poisonous look. Hope your mutt enjoys his 15 minutes of fame, he hissed. Won't help him when they label him dangerous. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? Colton smirked. Told the dispatcher he went for me, remember? Big, scary dog attacking an unarmed citizen? Animal control tends to take that seriously. Especially when my dad's on the phone. The door of the SUV slammed behind him. Mark straightened his coat. I advise you, Officer Cole, to think very carefully about your next steps. Careers burn out quickly in this climate. He nodded to the deputy. Good night, Deputy Parker. They drove off, taillights disappearing into the darkness. Parker stood there for a second, then exhaled shakily. I need to log this and call my sergeant, he said. He looked at Ethan. I'll note the video. I promise. I can't make it all go away, but I'm not writing you up as the aggressor. Thank you, Ethan said, meaning it. The truck stop manager shuffled over, eyes on the ground. I checked the system, he mumbled. Camera by pump 4 caught the whole thing too. I saved the file to a thumb drive just in case before anyone asked me to lose it. He pressed the small drive into Ethan's hand. You seem like the kind of man who'll use it right. Ethan closed his fingers around it. You might catch heat for this, he warned. Been catching heat from people like Hayes my whole life, the manager replied. Might as well do the right thing once. With that, Ethan was finally free to move. He climbed into his semi and drove toward the emergency vet, every mile feeling like a year. When he rushed through the clinic doors, the antiseptic smell hit him like a wall. A tired-looking vet tech glanced up. You the owner of Rusty? She asked. Yes, Ethan said. The word stuck in his throat. How is he? He's in surgery, she said. Broken leg, some internal bruising, but he was stable when the doctor took him back. We'll know more in an hour or so. She hesitated. You should also know, someone already called in a report. Said the dog attacked a driver, and there may be a dangerous dog investigation opened. Ethan felt cold settle under his skin. He was on a leash, he said. He never attacked anyone. I believe you, the tech replied softly. But animal control doesn't always get the full story. There's a hold on his file now. If they classify him as dangerous, they can order strict conditions or even... She didn't finish. How long before they show up? Ethan asked. She glanced at the clock. They said they're sending someone tonight. He looked through the small window into the back, where he could just make out stainless steel tables and bright lights. Rusty was somewhere in there, fighting. They want to ruin my career and kill my dog in one night, Ethan thought. He placed the thumb drive on the counter between them. That video shows exactly what happened, he said. And I'm a SWAT officer. They picked the wrong guy to bully. The tech nodded, eyes hopeful. Then maybe this time the truth wins. The clinic door chimed as someone entered behind him. Heavy footsteps. The jingle of keys. A clipped, official voice calling out, Animal control, hear about a brown mixed breed named Rusty. We've got a dangerous dog complaint we need to act on immediately. The animal control officer standing in the clinic lobby looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mid-40s, windbreaker with the county logo, clipboard clutched too tight. Name's Harris, he said. You're Ethan Cole? Ethan nodded. Rusty's owner. He's in surgery. Harris checked his clipboard. I've got a dangerous dog complaint from a Colton Hayes. Statement says the animal charged the vehicle and attempted to attack the driver. That's serious, Mr. Cole. Protocol says we place a hold and, depending on the investigation, possibly a seizure order. The dog was on a leash, Ethan replied. He never charged anyone. Your victim was doing donuts with Daddy's truck. Harris winced. Look, I get it. I've read the first reports from the deputy and now there's this video going around, but Hayes has already called my supervisor. Twice. He's leaning hard on this. Ethan picked up the thumb drive from the counter and held it out. Truck stop security footage. Shows everything. Add that to the viral video and the eyewitnesses. Harris hesitated, then took it. I'll log it, but even if this clears the dog, the complaint triggers a formal hearing. Could be weeks before this is resolved. Until then, we might need Rusty housed at a county facility. Ethan stepped closer, voice low. He's a trauma dog, Harris. He barely trusts anyone but me. You put him in a concrete cage surrounded by barking, he won't heal. And if he doesn't heal, this whole conversation is academic. The officer studied him. You a cop too? Ethan flipped his wallet, letting the badge flash. SWAT. That's supposed to scare me? Harris asked, but his tone had softened. No, Ethan said. It's supposed to tell you I'm not some guy who'll disappear if they try to railroad my dog because a rich kid cried. They looked at each other for a long moment. Finally Harris sighed. Okay, here's what I can do. I mark him quarantine with owner, instead of impound. You keep him at home, follow strict conditions, no public contact until the hearing. You break that, I take him, no argument. Deal? Relief washed over Ethan, shaky but real. Deal. Harris scribbled notes. I'm going to need that video emailed to our office too. Thumb drives make the IT guys nervous. The vet tech reappeared, eyes tired but kind. Mr. Cole? The doctor asked me to update you. Rusty made it through surgery. Legs pinned, lungs look okay but he'll have a limp. He woke up whining until we put one of your old flannels in his crate. Smelled you, calmed right down. Something hot stung the back of Ethan's eyes. He swallowed it. Can I see him? Briefly, she said. He'll be groggy. As he followed her down the hall, his phone buzzed. A known number. He almost ignored it, then saw the area code, his city. He answered. Cole. Ethan. It was his SWAT commander, Captain Morales. Her voice was clipped, all business. I just got 3 voicemails from a Mark Hayes and an email from our chief. Whatever you got yourself into out there just hit my desk. Ethan closed his eyes. You saw the video? Yeah, she said. And I also have a formal complaint accusing you of road rage, attempted assault, and inciting online harassment against a civilian. He stopped in the hall. So what happens now, Captain? On the other end, paper rustled. Internal Affairs wants to open a preliminary inquiry, she said. And until it's done, I may not have a choice but to pull you off SWAT and take your badge for a while. The words hit harder than any punch. Pull my badge. Ethan repeated, keeping his voice low so it wouldn't echo down the clinic hallway. Administrative leave, Morales clarified. Desk duty if I can swing it, but Hayes is threatening to go to every local station, every donor, the union. He's spinning this as you sicking a mob on his kid. I didn't post the video, Ethan said. I didn't even film it. Doesn't matter, she replied. Optics, you know the drill. A rich developer versus a SWAT cop with a history of intense incidents? They're already connecting dots they like. Old memories surged. The hostage call that went sideways, the teenage boy behind the barricade, the split-second decision that haunted Ethan's dreams. He'd been cleared, but whispers never fully stopped. I was trying to keep my dog from being crushed, he said quietly. I believe you, Morales said, and he could hear the honesty. I also believe this Hayes guy has enough money to make life miserable for everyone around him. Listen, Ethan. If you fight this in the media, they'll paint you as unstable. If you stay quiet, they might bury you quietly. There's no good move here. What are you telling me to do, Captain? He asked. Document everything, she said. Witness names, video sources, that thumb drive. Don't lose your temper, don't engage with trolls online, and for God's sake don't step one toe out of policy. You're walking on glass. He opened his mouth to ask about Rusty's dangerous dog case, but Morales cut in. And Ethan? IA scheduled an interview for next week. Until then, turn in your duty weapon tomorrow. Badge stays for now. But don't give them any reason to rethink that. The call ended. The vet tech waited by the recovery room door, reading his face. Bad news? She asked. He forced a breath. Just more of the same. She pushed the door open. Then go see your good news. Rusty lay curled on a small metal cot, wrapped in blankets, one leg bandaged and suspended. His eyes slitted open when Ethan stepped in, tail giving a slow, groggy thump. Hey buddy, Ethan whispered, crouching beside him. He slipped his hand through the bars. Rusty nosed his fingers, then sank his head onto Ethan's palm with a soft sigh. You did good, Ethan murmured. You held on. The tech cleared her throat. He'll need weeks of rest. Pain meds, follow-up appointments. It won't be cheap. I'll figure it out, Ethan said. Actually, she said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips, someone already made a start. We've had like 10 people call offering to help cover his bill. Some trucker paid the first chunk. And there's, a hashtag. A what? Hashtag justice for Rusty, she said. That video's exploding. People are mad. At the kid, at the system. At how many times they've seen stuff like this and couldn't do anything. He imagined an ocean of strangers watching Rusty get hit on their phones, fists clenching in living rooms across the country. I didn't want this to turn into a circus, Ethan said. Maybe it's not a circus, she said softly. Maybe it's a spotlight. Some people deserve a little light on them. His phone buzzed again, this time a text from an unknown number with a link. A local news station's website. Viral video shows developer's son running over dog at truck stop. Owner is SWAT officer. Below it, another message. This is the reporter on the piece. We'd like your side of the story before it airs. He stared at the screen. Morales's warning echoed in his mind. If you fight this in the media? Then he thought of Mark Hayes calmly threatening his career, of Colton smirking about having Rusty put down. Thought of the waitress and the truck stop manager, people who couldn't flash a badge when men like Hayes rolled over them. Maybe this time, silence was the real danger. He clicked the number to call the reporter. Hi, this is Ethan Cole, he said when she answered. And yeah, I've got something to say. He didn't notice the figure standing outside the clinic's glass doors, watching him through the rain-streaked window, a figure raising a phone to make yet another call. Yeah, Mark, the voice outside said quietly. He's talking to the press. Thought you'd want to know. The county hearing room smelled like old coffee and floor wax. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a tired glow on the folding chairs lined up for the public. A printed sign read, Dangerous Dog Determination, Case, Rusty, Mixed Breed. Ethan sat at the front table, Rusty curled at his feet on a thick blanket, one leg still braced. The brown mutt watched every movement in the room, ears twitching, sensing the tension. Remember, Harris murmured from the next chair over, he's only allowed here because the board made an exception. Keep him calm. No barking, no jumping. He barely barks at squirrels, Ethan said. The only one acting dangerous that night didn't walk on 4 legs. He scanned the room. The gray-bearded trucker sat in the second row, arms folded. The waitress was beside him in her work polo, eyes anxious but determined. The truck stop manager fidgeted with his cap. A couple of locals with phones out whispered, recognizing Ethan from the viral feature that had aired 2 days ago. At the opposite table sat Colton in a button-down shirt that still couldn't make him look respectful, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Next to him, Mark Hayes, suit immaculate. Their attorney flipped through a legal pad, lips thin. 3 board members took their seats behind a long table. Middle-aged, tired citizens pressed into service. The chair, a woman with streaks of gray in her hair, cleared her throat. "We're here to consider whether the dog Rusty constitutes a danger to the public," she began. "We'll hear from both sides, review evidence, and make a determination." The Hayes attorney went first. He painted a picture of a confused young man traumatized by an aggressive dog, a chaotic truck stop, an off-duty cop who escalated instead of calming things down. He described Rusty as lunging and unpredictable, leaning hard on Animal Control's initial complaint report. Then it was Ethan's turn. He stood, palms slightly sweaty despite years of testifying in court. "Rusty is a rescue," he said. "He's been my partner off-duty for 2 years. He's walked into more crowded spaces than I can count. Parks, rest stops, city sidewalks, without so much as a growl. That night, he was on a leash crossing a parking lot beside me." He nodded to the truck stop manager, who rolled in a TV cart like it was 1998. Harris plugged in a laptop, pulled up the security footage. On screen, the truth unfolded. Rusty trotting calmly at Ethan's side, Colton's truck hurtling in faster than any sane person would drive in a lot like that. The impact. The attempted reverse. Ethan's body slamming into the tailgate. Murmurs rolled through the room. The chair watched silently, eyes narrowing. "Play it again," she said. The Hayes attorney objected, muttering about selective angles, but she waved him off. After the 3rd replay, she turned to Colton. "You told Animal Control the dog charged your vehicle," she said. "Where exactly in this video do you see that?" Colton shifted in his seat. "He was moving toward me," he said weakly. "And after, he was snarling, trying to get up." "After you hit him," Ethan said, voice tight. "Broken leg, crushed lung, and he still tried to crawl to me. That's not aggression. That's fear." The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Even if the initial report was imprecise, my client has received death threats, harassment, vandalism to his property." The chair cut in. "We're not here about the internet. We're here about this dog." Mark leaned forward, finally speaking. "Madam Chair, with respect, this process has become politicized. My family has supported this county for years. Our developments bring jobs, tax revenue. I'd hate to see a good project endangered because a board decision got misinterpreted." Ethan could almost feel the pressure drop across the room. Old habits. Old fears. Before the silence could solidify, the waitress stood up, voice shaking but loud. "My name's Sarah," she said. "I waited tables at that truck stop for 9 years. I watched that dog get hit. I watched this man try to shield him with his own body. And I've watched men like you," she pointed at Mark, "come in, treat all of us like we're furniture. I'm tired of it." The gray-bearded trucker joined her. "My dashcam caught audio," he said. "You can hear the kid say, 'Watch this, I'm gonna freak that mutt out,' right before he guns it. That sound's been in my head every night since." Harris moved quickly to hook up another file. The board listened as Colton's voice crackled over the speakers. A cruel laugh, the words clear as day. Colton's face went white. The chair exhaled slowly. "All right," she said. "We've heard enough." The room held its breath. "For the record," she continued, "this board finds that Rusty does not meet the criteria of a dangerous dog. In fact, the only clear danger here came from reckless human behavior." Relief crashed through Ethan so hard his knees wobbled. "However," she added, glancing at Mark, "given the evidence of possible false reporting and attempted manipulation of this process, we'll be forwarding our full file to the county prosecutor." Her gaze sharpened. "Including the names of everyone who may have pressured witnesses or officials." Mark's smile finally cracked. At the back of the room, Deputy Parker slipped in, uniform crisp, eyes focused. He made his way to Ethan, leaning close. "Cole," he whispered, "you might want to stick around after this. The DA's here. And he's got questions for the Hayes family about a whole lot more than just your dog." They reconvened in a smaller conference room that smelled like printer toner and old carpet. The DA, a compact man with sharp eyes and rolled-up sleeves, spread files across the table like cards in a poker game. Deputy Parker stood by the door. Mark and Colton sat opposite Ethan, flanked by their attorney. Rusty lay under Ethan's chair, head on his paws, one ear cocked. "Let me make this simple," the DA said. "I've reviewed the videos, the dashcam audio, the animal control report, and the phone records from that night." He tapped one folder. "We've got Mr. Hayes calling the sheriff, animal control, and at least one board member within an hour of the incident, using words like vicious, attack, and unstable cop. We've got a complaint clearly contradicted by video. We've got a manager who says he was pressured to erase footage. That's obstruction territory. Mark's attorney bristled. Obstruction? For a concerned father making calls in the heat of the moment. The DA's gaze didn't waver. A concerned father doesn't ask which statutes can get a dog destroyed or a cop benched before anyone's even taken statements. He turned to Colton. And you, son. You've got prior speeding tickets, social media full of pranks involving vehicles, and now audio where you brag about scaring a dog right before you hit him. That smells like reckless endangerment and animal cruelty. Colton shifted, looking to his dad. Mark's jaw flexed, but he stayed silent. Ethan watched them, feeling the odd, distant calm that sometimes hit right before a breach. The part of his brain that liked things simple whispered, arrest, cuffs, done. But he knew the world wasn't that clean. Not with money involved. Not with foundations and donations and backroom deals. So what happens? Ethan asked. The DA laced his fingers. I'm prepared to file charges. But I'm not naive. This will get loud. Hayes Development has lawyers on retainer who bill more in a month than my office sees in a year. They'll cry witch hunt, anti-business bias, smear campaigns. He looked at Ethan. That's where you come in, officer. You going to stand firm when they drag your name through the mud again? Because they will. They'll bring up that botched hostage call from 3 years ago. They'll say you're unstable, trigger-happy, projecting your guilt onto this kid. Ethan felt Rusty's chin press lightly against his boot, as if the dog knew his heart rate just spiked. I lived through that investigation once already, Ethan said. They cleared me. Facts didn't change then and they won't now. I'm not perfect, but I know the difference between an accident and cruelty. The DA nodded slowly. Good. Because I also plan to call you as a witness when this goes to court. And the public will be watching. Mark finally spoke. You're making a mistake, he said. This county needs my projects. You think your budget looks bad now? Wait until donors pull out because you decided to crucify my family over a dog. Ethan finished softly. You were going to say dog. Mark's eyes flashed. Over a misunderstanding. The DA slid a document across the table. This misunderstanding nearly killed an animal, tried to destroy a man's career, and leaned on half the system to do it. The only reason we're all sitting here is because some working folks with smartphones decided they'd had enough. He clicked his pen. Charges will be filed by end of day. As the meeting broke up, Mark leaned close to Ethan, voice cold. You think this is over because some truckers and waitresses cheered for you online? He murmured. You and your mutt just made enemies with people who play a much longer game. Ethan met his gaze. Then I guess we'll both see who's better at outlasting the other. Outside in the parking lot, the gray-bearded trucker waited, leaning against his rig. Sarah stood beside him, clutching a to-go coffee. How bad? She asked. They're filing charges, Ethan said. Colton, maybe Mark too. The trucker let out a low whistle. Didn't think I'd live long enough to see somebody with money actually get called out around here. Rusty hobbled alongside Ethan, sniffing the air. Sarah crouched, offering her hand. Hey hero, she whispered. Rusty nuzzled her fingers, tail flicking. I got something else for you, the trucker said, reaching into his cab. He handed Ethan a small envelope, worn at the edges. Some of the guys passed a hat around at the truck stop. Not much, but it'll help with his bills. Figure we owe that mutt. He's our mascot now. Emotion surged hot and unexpected in Ethan's chest. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yeah, the trucker replied. We did. As they talked, Ethan's phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Internal Affairs. Subject line, Notice of Investigation, Cole Ethan. His eyes skimmed the first line. You are hereby notified, allegations of misconduct, mandatory interview. Failure to cooperate may result in termination. Rusty nudged his hand, sensing the shift. The DA might be going after Hayes, the board might have cleared Rusty, but IA was still coming. And if they decided he was more trouble than he was worth, all the justice in the world wouldn't save his badge. He looked down at Rusty, then back toward the distant city skyline. Okay, he murmured. One more fight, buddy. But he had no idea just how far Hayes was willing to go to make sure this last fight took everything from him. Internal Affairs set up in a windowless room with gray walls and a humming vent. Ethan had sat in rooms like this before, with suspects, with witnesses, with officers whose hands shook when the recorder clicked on. Now he sat at the table alone, Rusty waiting outside with Sarah in the lobby, his badge resting heavy in his pocket. Across from him, the IA investigator pressed the record button. For the record, state your name and assignment. Officer Ethan Cole. City SWAT. The investigator, a woman with tired eyes and a pen that never stopped moving, went through every second of the truck stop night. She asked about his tone, his body language, whether he'd used his position to intimidate a civilian youth. She brought up the hostage call from 3 years ago, the therapy sessions afterward, the nights he'd sat in his car too wired to drive home. Do you see any pattern here, officer? She asked finally. High-stress incidents, emotional responses, difficulty letting go? He thought of Rusty pressing against his chest on those worst nights. Of muddy paws on his clean couch. Of how the dog seemed to know when Ethan was about to spiral and would shove a slobbery toy into his hand, anchoring him. I see a pattern, he said. Of me putting myself between reckless people and the things they're trying to hurt. She watched him for a long time. Then quietly, off the record? My sister's a vet tech. She sent me that video before I ever got your file. I'm not blind, officer. But policy doesn't care what I feel. It cares what you did. He nodded. He understood rules. Lived by them. Hours later he walked out of the building lighter and heavier at once. IA would review and deliberate. The words meant he might be cleared, or quietly sidelined forever. Outside, Sarah leaned against his truck, Rusty at her feet. The dog hauled himself up on 3 good legs when he saw Ethan, tail wagging hard enough to shake his hips. Well, she asked. Jury's out, he said. Like everything else. She smiled sadly. At least you speak their language. Some of us don't even get in the room when people like Hayes decide who matters. As if summoned by his name, a black car rolled slowly past the station, windows tinted. It didn't stop, but Ethan recognized the profile in the back seat. Mark Hayes, watching the front steps like a general studying a battlefield he'd once owned. This time Ethan didn't look away. He lifted a hand, not a wave, not a threat. Just acknowledgement. Mark's jaw tightened as the car turned the corner and disappeared. Weeks passed. Rusty learned to walk with his new limp, adjusting his gait, still insistent on shadowing Ethan from room to room. Donations kept coming in small, heartfelt amounts. $10 from a retiree on a fixed income, $50 from a teenager who wrote, I don't have much but I've seen guys in jacked-up trucks like that my whole life. The DA announced charges, reckless endangerment and animal cruelty for Colton, obstruction and attempted witness tampering for Mark. The Hayes PR machine sputtered, then stalled under the weight of videos, statements, and the board's formal referral. At the truck stop, business picked up. Folks wanted to see the place from the video, to eat in Sarah's section, to shake the manager's hand. A rumor spread that Hayes's big development project across town had been put on pause, while the board reviewed his ethics record. Ethan's phone finally rang one rainy afternoon as Rusty snored on the couch, paws twitching in dreams. Cole, he answered. Captain Morales didn't make him wait. IA closed the case, she said. No sustained violations. They're recommending a mental health check-in but no discipline. You're cleared to return to SWAT if you still want it. He exhaled, laughter and relief tangled. If I still want it, he repeated. Yeah, Captain. I still want it. One condition, she added. You bring that dog by the station sometime. Half my team wants to meet the mutt who almost took down a developer. He looked at Rusty, who blinked sleepily, head cocked. He charges appearance fees and belly rubs, Ethan said. Deal, she replied and hung up. That evening Ethan drove back to the truck stop. The neon still flickered. The asphalt was still cracked. But the air felt different, lighter somehow. Truckers nodded as he walked Rusty slowly across the lot, giving the dog time to sniff every oil stain. Sarah waved from the door, apron on, pen behind her ear. You two are kind of famous now, she said. We had a family drive 4 hours just to eat here because they wanted to spend money somewhere the little guy actually won. Rusty flopped down by Ethan's boot as he sat at the counter. For the first time in a long time, the buzzing in his head was quiet. He knew it wasn't a perfect victory. Hayes still had money, connections, lawyers. The system hadn't magically fixed itself. Somewhere else, another waitress, another dog, another trucker would meet another man who thought the world existed to cushion his fall. But here, tonight, a line had held. Ethan reached down, scratching behind Rusty's ears. The dog leaned into his hand, eyes closing in simple trust. Guess you're not just my therapy dog anymore, Ethan murmured. You're a working-class hero. Rusty answered with a soft groan of contentment. Outside, a lifted truck pulled in, older, beat up, driven by a kid in a faded work shirt. He parked slow, careful, eyes scanning the lot. When he got out, he spotted Ethan's gaze and lifted a hand. "Nice dog, sir," he called. "Saw you on the news. Trying real hard not to be one of the bad guys in a truck." Ethan nodded. "Start with the speed limit," he said. "And maybe don't film yourself being an idiot." The kid laughed, a little embarrassed, and headed inside. Ethan watched him go, then looked down at Rusty. "Maybe that's all we can do," he said quietly. "Hold the line where we are. One parking lot, one person, one dog at a time." Rusty thumped his tail in agreement. "And you, what would you do if you saw someone with power hurting those who can't fight back? Would you look away or step in and become part of the line that holds?"